on the organic electronics devices, organic electronic devices. So last class I was introducing I was saying that the methods or manufacturing process, the concepts behind the micro devices, they are completely applicable for organic electronics, but the way how the choice of materials will differ. Okay. Now, but the inner principle of or the chemistry behind as I said, you cannot avoid chemistry, physical chemistry. One has to understand that to know the functionality of these organic electronic devices. So last class I was saying that the advantages of why people started looking for organic electronics, the flexibility, the low cost. Even a paper becomes an electronic device. Okay. Plastics. So there is it's a different dimension. It's an alternative to the traditional silicon or inorganic semiconductors. So the principle, but before that, one of the major things which one has to understand is the molecular orbital and atomic orbitals of materials or elements. So that's what we discussed last class. So at the conclusion, I said when the atoms join together, combine together, or molecules combine together, or two different materials combine together, finally we will end up with HOMO level of molecular orbital and LUMO level. So this is the energy level. So I mentioned what is this energy level last class. So we will finally end up with HOMO and LUMO levels, where HOMO level is the place where it's a highly occupied molecular orbital. That means this is the orbit where the electrons are, the last orbit where the electrons are occupied. LUMO level is the orbit which is the least occupied, minimum electrons are occupied in the energy level. Okay, so either the atoms combine together to form molecule, there you will have this, or molecules combine together, again you may have this. So when I'm going to have two coatings of materials, suppose I coat two materials on a glass substrate. Say I start with something in glass, so I coat some material, some XX material, and then thereafter I'm going to have some organic material. So finally, in this between these two materials, I'm going to have this HOMO and LUMO levels. Okay, so I explained you how this forms last class. So keep that in mind. Now next step, what we are going to do see is, first we will see the difference between inorganic and organic semiconductors first. Then we will see a simple function of organic diode. That's all today. Okay. So before I go, I just want to excite you by showing these people's picture. These people got the Nobel Prize in 2000 for their contribution in 1977 in identifying polyacetylene. Polyacetylene is a polymer, but they made it, which is a polymer. Probably it doesn't have a good properties of conductivity, but they showed that how you can make it conductive. So this actually gave birth to organic electronics. Okay, so why I want to mention this here is, I want to show you that I want to mention the importance of organic electronics, and the highest honor was given to this in 2000. But the Nobel Prize was given for this case. Okay, so moving towards I just wanted to excite by showing this picture. There's nothing. Even the recent Nobel Prize are also announced for proving the Einstein's theory. They have given Nobel Prize this time. Okay, so now I'm going to discuss about the difference between organic and inorganic semiconductors first. before we go into the function of organic layer, I think we should know this. The first thing is the crystallinity of the material. The crystallinity means how usually in general the inorganic, for example, silicon. Okay, you also have amorphous kind of a thing, but mostly inorganic semiconductors are very crystalline in nature. Okay, so they are mostly inorganic semiconductors are crystalline in nature. Okay, that has many advantages because once you have crystallinity, even the conduction of electrons, you have the conduction bands and other things. But in case of organic semiconductors, they are mostly amorphous. So I told you what is amorphous means last time. Okay. There is no any orientation in this. Okay. So that's the dull point of the organic semiconductor. Now, how is the electronic configuration or electron conduction? Let's say electronic configuration. So, in case of inorganic semiconductors, you have the electrons or they move across the valence band and conduction band and so on. Yeah, you have defined conduction band, valence band, and Fermi levels. So the electrons move across that. So if by having a doping of some phosphorus or boron, in case of silicon, you can bring these bands closer, and then electrons can move across these bands. That's how the conductivity occurs in inorganic semiconductors. Okay, but whereas in electronic configuration, you don't have any such things. You don't have any this kind of so we don't have any this kind of electronic configurations in this case, but rather we are the electronic configuration is based upon molecular orbital. Yeah. So molecular orbital. So from the fundamentals of atomic orbitals, these molecular orbitals are formed, and how the electrons moves, how there could be a conduction of electrons. The conduction of electrons can come from the energy levels within the molecular orbitals. So energy levels within the molecular orbital. That is, the movement of charge carriers are now between the LUMO and HOMO levels. This is a very big difference from the way how the what was there in the traditional inorganic semiconductor, which you were knowing all these days, all the electronic devices, transistors, diodes. But for us now, in this case of organic semiconductors, we don't have such things. We have purely amorphous material where the conduction of the electronic configuration is defined by the molecular orbitals. The movement of charge carriers occurs between these two, between the energy levels, such as HOMO and LUMO levels. Right. So what are the charge carriers in case of inorganic semiconductors? Charge carriers. What do I mean by charge carriers? Electrons and holes. So we have electrons and holes are the major charge carriers. But whereas in the organic semiconductors, we have electrons, but these electrons. The electrons are always confined inside a molecule. The electrons are always confined inside a molecule. So people call this as polarons. So in this case, the electrons and the holes, I mean, they are actually they don't have boundary. They're free to move. But in this case, since the electrons are confined within the molecule, and they could have many restrictions, or there could be defined by many lattices within itself. There could be they will be confined, or they will be interacting with lattices inside a molecule. So what I'm trying to say is, that is a well-known thing already. You might have studied a long back in your school time as well. Now, but this is something different. So here the electrons are confined inside a molecule. So their movement is not much. They have to move within. Inside the molecule itself, they have quite a lot of distance to move. Okay? So within the molecule, actually, we have these levels. So if they have to move across these kind of energy levels. They have some barriers to move across itself. So that's the charge carriers. And here the next. So how does the conduction of the electricity or happens here? You know that when the electrons move across, we have the conduction here, or they move, or the electrons are very free to move. But they also can get some scatterings when they come across some barriers. But generally, the electrons in an inorganic semiconductors, they are free to move. But in this case, the conduction, since the electrons are defined inside this molecule, what will happen is, then there is one electron here, and then adjacent to it there is another molecule. Adjacent to it there is another molecule. So the structure is like this. So if there is a movement of electron is required, means the electron needs to move from one molecule to another molecule to have a conductivity. Okay? So that can happen only, they call it people term this as hopping. So the conductivity happens by electron hopping. So the electron has to move from one molecule to another molecule. Not like this way. In this case, it's very free. The boundaries are very free.
So does the hopping correspond to the increase in energy level of the LUMO and HOPE?
Yes, there is something being done. So imagine this group of molecules is a thin film coated on a glass substrate. Now I think you can imagine some spin coating was done. So in between these two corners, something we do such that we can initiate this hopping. Okay, so this can happen even in case of solar cells. The light energy can do this activity. The electrons can move. That's why the electricity is produced. Okay, so and the last point I want to say is, so here the conductivity is based on the hopping of electrons. The electrons are very confined within the molecule. So if they want to move, they have to actually move from one molecule. They have to cross this barrier. They have to hop from one molecule to another molecule. Okay. So if I have a cathode here and an anode, so if I want to have if I have an organic material between this, let me have abbreviation OC instead of that, not OC, OS, organic. Say if I have an organic semiconductor coated between two electrodes, if I have to have a conductivity between these two, then I should expect that the electrons from here has to travel along to this place. So this can only happen if you zoom inside this. There are numerous molecules. So the electron has to pass or hop all these molecules to have the conductivity. Okay. So, but if this need to happen, that means one of the very important factor to achieve this is it depends upon the material's mobility. So mobility of the charge carriers. So mobility of the charge carriers. So the mobility of the charge carriers here is quite very high, which is in order of 10 power 4 centimeters square per volt. That means this actually defines the speed of. I mean, it is very free to move. You have a quick movement of the electrons across. But in this case, this is in the order of 10 power minus 6, okay, centimeter square. So the mobility of the charge carriers within the organic semiconductors is very low. So this makes it more harder to achieve any good devices. That's why people are trying to make a lot of research to come up with this. But at the same time, it is not neglected that we cannot do anything. We have understood what happens inside these organic semiconductors. So now it is up to the engineers or the device manufacturers to think how they can make use of this and still do some fantastic electronics. Okay. So overall, in a nutshell, I just wanted to say that the concepts what we have in the inorganic semiconductors, such as the PN junction diode, how it works, okay, or the transistors. I don't want to repeat that again. You must be knowing it. So that could be different here. Okay. So some of the main points even could be exam point of view. I can ask you of this, like how the differences between the inorganic and, or I can ask you how the charge carriers move inside an organic semiconductors. Okay. So the electron hopping and what is the restricts them for not having to have a good conductivity is because the electrons has to move from one molecule to another molecule. It has to cross the barriers.
So does that mean that if you use organic semiconductor, the efficiency might be a bit lower compared?
Not bit, a lot lower. It's a lot lower.
It's a lot lower.
But one sad part is the efficiency is lower. That's why people are trying to make it how you can make it efficient. But at the better side is you can actually make flexible electronics, or you have a lot of that, like the video what I shared with you. You have quite a lot of advantages, and people are trying to, moving towards that. So that's the difference between the inorganic and organic. Check whether everything. So here also we have the recombination of the electrons and holes. Very similar procedures of that. We also expect the positive and negative charges will combine. Recombination is very similar. So that's why I'm bringing this to you. Okay. So next we will discuss upon organic diode. You have to really listen to me carefully because this is going to be there. Before I go into the original discussion on organic diode, I want to introduce something called as a term called as work function. What function of a material? Work function of a material is defined as the electric potential, the minimum. If I defines as an electric potential that can knock out an electron. Okay, what function is defined as the amount of electric potential that can knock out an electron. For example, if I say I want a material of a low work function, what do you interpret from this? just now I said work function defines it defines the amount of electric potential that can knock an electron. Okay, you want to produce an electron from a material. Okay, you are applying some electric potential, then you produce an electron. So I'm saying that this is actually defined by something called as a work function. Now I'm asking a question: how do you interpret when I say I want a material of a low work function? What do you think it is?
It's a lower electric potential. It's a lower electric potential.
Yes. So I need, if I give a low electric potential, I can actually easily produce an electron from that. That's the meaning. When I say a low work function material, I just add an adjective, low work function material. Is it? So when I have, usually what happens is in the organic diodes, LEDs or even the solar cells, most of the time, the cathode material, so we have anode and cathode, the negative, the cathode material is usually a low work function material. Okay? Low work function material. The cathode of organic diodes or low work function material. Example of low work. Aluminium itself is low work function material. Okay, and there is another gallium indium is another low work function. Generally, this is many places. It looks like mercury kind of a thing, very jelly kind of thing, but it does you can easily knock out an electron from that. Okay, so in case of cathode, so cathode is the one which actually in a device, cathode is the one which produces the electrons. Okay. Now the other one is the anode. So for anode, the work function should be higher. The anode material is usually a higher work function material. Okay. So let's go to the discussion on the. So we define an energy level with respect to vacuum. It's some electric potential energy level. So we have the anode, a cathode. So what they do is, just check my. So let me finish the complete right, then you can take a note. Huh? So we have the anode. So this this. So it's like this. So we have an anode electrode. Okay. Above that we have the organic semiconductor, and then we have the cathode. This is the simplest structure of a diode. Okay. So when I apply a forward biases, that means if I apply negative to this and positive to this, I should expect a forward bias. And if I apply the reverse of this, I should expect a reverse bias. And then it functions as a diode. In case of inorganic semiconductor, we have the P and N regions here, PN junction. In this case, we don't have anything like that. Okay, so we just have one piece of coating. In general, the most simplest, probably these scientists, whatever they have produced, the polyacetylene could be something, or pentasane, or some kind of an organic semiconductor is coated on this kind of thing. So mostly so I gave the example for cathode, aluminium or gallium indium are usually chosen. Organic semiconductors, there are a lot of them. Examples like the one or the pentasane, anthracene, there are many of them. Anode material, most of the cases, the popularity of the organic diodes is in terms of light emitting diodes. So when you want to have a light to pass through, you need a transparent material. Okay, then when the light can come out, you can see it. So usually the anode is indium tin oxide. This is a transparent material which can be coated on a glass plate. Okay, so usually this is the structure. Now, if I want to slightly expand this, so when I say this organic semiconductor, so within this molecular orbitals, at the end, I'm going to have these LUMO and HOMO levels, right? So what happens is, we have the cathode. So with respect to this energy level, this says the work function is low. We have the cathode, and we have the anode, which has higher work function material. So this is some potential of EC, and this is potential of EA. High potential material. So in between this is the sandwich, is the organic semiconductor. What happens is, here we have this HOMO and LUMO levels. So we have LUMO, HOMO levels of the organic semiconductors. Now, when I apply an electric potential that is positive to this, so when I say LUMO means, what is the meaning? Lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So what is left here? What is left here in this orbit? Okay, after this is fine. What I was trying to say here, right now I know it's a little difficult to digest. I'm trying to help you all. Something new. So generally the diode is, in general, in inorganic semiconductor you have the PN junction diode. Okay, I'm not going to leave that. Now we are talking something on organic semiconductor base. In this case also we have the cathode and anode, but in between we have organic semiconductor, which is totally polymer. Okay, the characteristics of organic semiconductor, just now I described you what they are. Okay, so something like this is there in between. There are numerous of them, many chemists available. Now, I'm now trying to draw a drawing with respect to energy levels. The left side here axis, you consider this is an energy level. So this is sandwiched like this. So the first comes the anode, which has the which has the lowest energy level. I'm keeping it at anode. And then in between is the organic semiconductor. So what I'm trying to get from you guys is, inside that, I told you that finally, whatever the combinations, we finally end up with one HOMO level and LUMO level. What is the LUMO level consist of? It consists of either no electrons or very less electrons. Yeah, that is the lowest unoccupied molecular orbital. So when I say that particular orbit doesn't have an electron, what is the property of it? What it can? That means it can consume electrons. It can now take electrons, right? When I say highest occupied molecular orbital means it has already excess of electrons. It has already electrons. Now it can give away. So when the electrons moves out, actually it's a transportation of holes, basically. Yeah, holes. Yeah. So what we are doing, that's why we are placing the cathode towards the LUMO level. The cathode is not towards the LUMO level, and anode is towards the HOMO level. Now when I apply a positive potential to this, a negative potential to this, so there is a flow of electrons from here, and there is a flow of holes from here. Okay, so there is a conduction between this. But the electrons, if I want to have the complete conduction, then I also need to have the electrons from the, there should be a charge, there should be a movement of charge carriers between these two levels. Then the conduction happens. Correct? Okay? But that electrons are keep on supplied by the external electric potential what you are giving. Do you get this? Okay? So, but this anode, compared to the holes cannot go to the LUMO level, or it cannot go to another, because the barrier between these two is quite large. It cannot move. Okay. At the same time, the electrons from here cannot go to the HOMO level because again the separation is lot. The energy required may be very, very high, but the immediate level where it can go is the HOMO level. In other words, equivalent electrical analogy I can give is the always electrons will take the lowest resistance path. Okay, so if you see here, compared to this, from here to here, or the lowest resistance path is this. Okay, so this is the model of the organic semiconductor diode in terms of energy levels. Now, if you want to see what happens in terms of the different diode characteristics, let me check if I see any points. The another point I missed here is, okay, now in case of inorganic semiconductors, the N-type material or P-type materials in inorganic semiconductors are defined by the doping. Okay, but whereas in case of an organic semiconductor, the N and P type, it's not really N and P type, but it's something like that. It's defined by the mobility of the holes or electrons. If that material is having a higher mobility, which kind of charge is having a higher mobility, that defines the what kind of is it a P-type or N-type material. Okay. So let's see how the characteristics looks like.
Can you explain that?
Now, I wanted to say that in case of inorganic semiconductors, the N-type and P-type materials of the semiconductor can be made by doping. That the N and P-type is characterized by doping of material itself. In this case, the N and P-type is defined by the mobility of the charge carriers. The unit is centimeter squared by per volt. So our application of voltage, how much the area the electrons are flowing off. So that if the material has more affinity to mobility for holes, then it's P-type, or if it is for electrons, then it is N-type. Okay. So let me check. To be very frank, this topic is not that direct to my research work. I take some help for myself also. We have done some solar cell in the past, but not that serious like other work. Okay. Now, for the sake of explanation of the no bias condition, reverse bias condition, and forward bias condition, let's discuss these three things. So when there is no electric potential is applied, let's say anode and cathode. So this is some sort of reference. So what happens is the organic material, the way the LUMO level is very far away from the cathode, very far away from the anode, but very closer to the cathode. Similar way, the HOMO level is very nearby, it's close to the anode, but it is quite far away from the HOMO level. That's what we discussed a while ago. So when we don't have any bias, when we don't apply any bias to this, there is no conduction of charge carriers. It just stays like this. When we don't apply any electric potential, that means we maintain at zero voltage. Nothing happens. Okay? That means whatever the electrons which are there in the HOMO level just stays there. Now let's say if it is a reverse bias condition, so the points what I said is the cathode, I think I already discussed. The cathode could be something like the gallium indium, or anode could be indium oxide. Now in case of reverse biases, what happens? So in the reverse biases means instead of applying positive potential here, I'm going to apply a voltage less than 0 or negative potential, or negative potential. In case of cathode, I'm going to apply a positive potential. So what they have defined is, when you do such thing, the electric potential, the electrostatic potential of this anode increases in comparison to the cathode. So what happens is, this energy level difference between the HOMO and LUMO, which was there without any bias, increases to a higher level. Okay, the anode energy level goes higher when you do this, when you apply the reverse bias condition, and the cathode moves away from the LUMO level. So what happens now? I told you the function, how it occurs. This movement of charge carriers becomes more difficult now. The barrier got increased, and you don't have any movement of these charge carriers across them. So this actually leads to very few or almost no charge carriers movement across this anode and cathode finally. And this leads to similar to the reverse biases what you see in the normal PN junction diode. Do you get this? So the point here is, this increase in the energy level difference between the HOMO level and the anode occurs. This actually creates the barrier there. Okay, at the reverse bias condition. So more you apply a negative voltage here, more you go up, and you don't actually have any conduction for very less charge carriers.
Okay. So for inorganic inorganic, the similar graph to this is the energy level graph, the conduction band.
Yes, there is actually more a formation of depletion layers, and the conduction doesn't happen because of the increase in the depletion layer in case of a normal diode. I mean the PN junction diode. But here we have the energy level of this anode goes higher, or the exact term is basically, it's a sort of more dielectric here. So the electrostatic potential between these two goes higher and gets more separation. Okay, the separation is sufficient enough that you don't have any conduction here. So when you don't have any conduction here, eventually you don't have anything between these two also. So this is reverse bias condition. Then we have the forward bias condition. So the forward bias, so same anode, then I'm just redrawing the same figures in a different pattern. So what happens is, in generally they have a, so when I apply, in this case I apply a positive potential, and then I apply a negative potential. So in this case, this HOMO and LUMO level come very closer. Okay, this barrier reduces, and then you have the conductivity of these holes and electrons. That's the principle. In case of forward bias, it's quite simple. If you understand it, then it's easy. So in case of forward biases, you actually we reduce this barrier now, and they come more closer and you achieve the conductivity. So the characteristics is very similar to the IV characteristics of normal air. So this is the overall general idea of an organic diode. So yes, okay, I'll continue further on. So this principle is probably the popularity of organic diode. We do not know how it is, but based on this, the organic light emitting diode. Now, when these electrons are moving from that loop, from the HOMO, from these two energy levels, when there is an exchange of the electrons there, Okay, I'll come back to that. I don't want to explain that. Maybe after I finish the organic diode completely, I'll go to that point. So now this is actually a very basic structure what I talked to you. This just an organic semiconductor is there in between two electrodes, and there is one anode and cathode. So this is a very simplest form, but what people have tried to do is they try to improve this structure with multiple layers. Okay? Yep. So what we have is we start with anode. So above anode, what they try to do is they may have an additional layer, something called as hole injection layer. That means this layer has potential to, yes guys please, this layer enhances to have more, produce more holes. Then above this there could be another layer called as hole transport layer. So all is now spin coated. All are sort of an organic material, something like the photoresist what you saw in the lab. Just on the substrate, one after other is spin coated. Then we have the organic semiconductor. So above that again there is a next layer which is the electron transport layer. And probably the cathode, or there could be one more electron injection layer, and so on. So this is actually a more sophisticated structure. So now why I'm saying this, the one what I explained to you is just this part. These layers were not there, but the principle is still the same. These enhances the, as I told you, the mobility is so poor, more amorphous. This actually now the additional layers enhances this movements of the charge carriers. Now what people do as research now, most of them, even now 2017, okay, they try to find out the best. So nothing much can be done with this. Okay, can do also. People are trying to produce more, but one can think of adding new layers or try to find some nanotechnology stuff like nanostructures in this layer, how they can enhance this charge carrier. So there's quite a lot of research is happening in finding out these additional layers that can improve this. So by doing this, people try to make the better efficiency. Say in case of luminescence, a brighter OLED, or in case of solar cell, a brighter energy efficient solar cell, and so on. Okay. So just wanted to conclude this organic diode part saying that it's just not the layer what we discussed for the phenomenal understanding. It can have extra layers, but the principle is the same. If you take the latest 2016, 2017 papers, they may have, every paper will have this layer, but in my explanation I didn't have it. But the concept is the same. Okay. So before I conclude this part, now what I discussed is an organic diode. I stopped giving these chocolates long back, but let me promise I'll give next class for sure who answers this. Okay. If mechatronics students have already heard Varghese lectures, don't answer. But others, then also I think I can check whether you have answered. I checked with him. There is some similarities happening between the two units. Yeah, yeah. Is it this one you might have here, but not the diode functions. So this is more of a device, but there's more of materials there. Yeah. Okay. So, but good thing is you can actually read two things and prepare easily. Right. How does, I'll explain to you now the organic diode function. How do you think this organic diode, if I want to make it as light emitting diode or OLED, what is the principle behind that? Why it should light up or why it should glow?
Because that emits.
I want the exact answer. Okay.
Is it something to do with emitting photons?
Yeah. The electron will jump the home. So when you recombine, due to energy not lost, the energy will be the same as
Oh. By what law or what could be the principle there? I want that. You are almost there. Google now.
Huh?
Google the brain. Huh? Equal to? Very good. We give them. Scientist is getting born. Okay. So, we're saying the homo.
So when we are going to have the movement of the charge carriers, the energy which there is a loss of energy. That means from a higher level to lower level when you are going to have a movement of this charge. Okay? The energy is now defined by Planck's law, which is h mu. Okay. So the Planck's constants and the wavelength. So what you see now here is, since there is a wavelength here, if this wavelength is in the visible light, okay, then that energy, the release of that energy will be visible to your eyes. That's how you are able to light up that's why you see the LEDs are glowing. So in case of organic light emitting diode, that is the thing happens there. You have this movement of these electrons, not exactly electrons, the charge carriers from the LUMO to HOMO level. And when they are moving, the energy is defined by this Planck's law. And why you get the color. So how this color is defined? This color can be defined by choosing this organic semiconductor, okay, based on the properties of that organic semiconductor, which is green. Okay. So I will discuss this organic light emitting diode, solar cell, very detailed. That thing. Then I will explain some sensors. That's enough. And definitely I'll be asking a question. 25 marks based on just the explanation what we had in class. And please, some of you didn't finish the Google forms, both the Google forms. I know I'm giving a lot of Google forms, but the thing is, I'm not, since the laboratory is small, the people who are handling the different parts of the experiments are different. I don't get the real, I don't know who finishes what. Okay? Otherwise, I have to put a label like when you go to the theme park, you finished it. Okay? So, I want you to fill it so that if any people have not finished, the next week I can just only have those people I can contact and make them to finish.